Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at some really interesting ancient wisdom today.
Yeah, specifically about freedom, overcoming attachments. We're drawing from two related stories in the Dhammapada Atthakatha.
Right, these ancient commentaries, stories 297 and 298 for anyone following along with the sources.
Exactly. They give context to verses the Buddha spoke.
And our goal, really, for this deep dive is to unpack these stories, pull out the key ideas about what holds us back.
See what these texts actually mean by freedom. Some, maybe surprising definitions might pop up.
Getting well informed, fast on these specific texts, that's the plan.
And it's amazing how they use these very human situations from way back when to talk about really deep stuff, attachment, letting go.
Totally. Okay, so story 297, let's start there. It involves a former entertainer.
That's right, a no-kadaka, the source calls him, an actor or dancer.
And the story goes that while he was still performing, he heard the Buddha teach.
Yes, and it had a huge impact. He actually gave up that life, became a monk, and, well, eventually became fully enlightened, an arahant.
Wow. Okay, so then there's this specific scene later on. He's an enlightened monk now.
Right, totally serene. He's out getting alms with the Buddha and other monks.
And they see
What?
another performer.
Exactly, a young person doing a street performance, a real echo of his own past, you imagine.
Must have been quite a moment. And so the other monks, seeing this,
Well, they ask him, they say basically, hey, do you still feel anything for that stuff you used to do? Any affection left?
seems like a reasonable question, maybe, given his history was right there.
From our usual perspective, yeah. But his answer, just no.
One word, simple.
Very simple. But apparently too simple for the other monks.
Ah, okay, so they didn't quite buy it.
Not really. The text says they went to the Buddha kind of complaining, like he's saying something that isn't true or he's misrepresenting himself.
They just couldn't believe someone could be that detached from such a big part of their past life.
It seems so. They couldn't imagine it for themselves, maybe. They thought he must have some lingering feeling.
That's so human, isn't it? Judging someone's inner state based on their outer history.
Right. But the Buddha immediately steps in to defend him.
What does he say?
He just states it plainly. My son has overcome all ties. The word used is yoga, all ties.
Okay, yoga as in ties, bindings, not physical postures here.
Definitely not. It's about what binds you internally. And the Buddha reframes it completely. It's not about the past, it's about the present state of liberation.
So what are these ties or yoga that he's overcome? The story must explain that.
It does. The Buddha speaks a verse right then to clarify. It goes something like, having abandoned the human tie, he transcended the divine tie, detached from all ties, him I call a brahmin.
Okay, let's break that down based just on what the source says. Human tie.
The source explains manusaka yoga, the human tie, as, well, human life itself and the 5 sense pleasures that come with it. The whole package deal of earthly experience and enjoyment.
That's a big tie to abandon. And the divine tie.
The Bhakti Yoga. The source says it follows the same idea. So it implies divine existence, maybe heavenly realms, and the attachments or pleasures associated even with that kind of life. So it's not just about letting go of earthly stuff.
Interesting. It covers both human and potential higher states of being.
Yeah.
And then detached from all ties.
Sobayoga Visayuta. The source actually mentions this means being free from all 4 kinds of ties, even though only 2 are detailed right here in the verse's explanation.
Implying a total comprehensive release from anything and everything that could bind you.
Exactly. Which leads to the real punchline.
The definition of a Brahmin.
Right. In that society, Brahmin usually meant someone born into the priestly caste. It was about birthright.
But the Buddha flips that completely.
Totally. He says this person, the one who has abandoned all these ties, human and divine, him I call a Brahmin. It's about spiritual achievement, not birth.
Wow, that's a powerful redefinition. Inner liberation becomes the marker of true nobility, not social standing.
Precisely. It's all about the internal state.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Now, story 298, the source says it's similar.
Very similar, yes. Another former entertainer, same location, Valuvana. But the Buddha speaks a different verse about this monk.
Highlighting maybe a different angle on this freedom idea.
I think so. This second verse goes, having abandoned delight and non-delight, become cool, without defilements, the conqueror of the whole world, the hero him I call a Brahmin.
Another definition of a Brahmin. Okay, let's unpack these terms, again, just from the source. Delight.
Rati. The source explains this simply as delight in the 5 sense pleasures. So very similar to the human tie idea, the pull towards things we enjoy.
Makes sense. The attraction side. What about non-delight? Arati.
Man, this is really interesting. The source defines arati as weariness or discontent, specifically with dwelling in the forest.
Wait, so discontent with the monastic life itself, the hard parts.
Exactly. Discontent with the austerity, the challenges of that path. So it's not just about overcoming attraction to pleasure.
It's also about overcoming aversion or resistance to difficulty and discomfort. Wow.
That's a key point, isn't it? Freedom isn't just liking everything. It's also not being pushed away by the tough stuff.
Okay, what about become cool? Situvito.
The source connects this directly to nibbita, which means extinguished, like a fire going out, attaining nirvana. It implies this deep inner peace, the cooling of the heat of suffering, craving, aversion.
A state of profound calm and without defilements, nirupeti.
Explained as nirupakilesa, meaning without impurities, without afflictions, a mind that's clear, pure, not clouded by greed, hatred, delusion.
Purity of mind. Got it. And then there's hero. Vra.
The source says this means someone vigorous, yes, but specifically someone who has overcome the entire world of aggregates.
The aggregates, that's the khandas, right? Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness.
Exactly. The building blocks of our entire experience of self and reality. So being a hero here isn't about conquering lands.
It's about conquering your own constructed reality, the very way you experience things.
Profound stuff. It completely redefines what being a hero means.
And again, just like the first story, the punchline is this person, the one who has achieved this inner state.
Who has overcome both delight and non-delight, become cool, pure, conquered the aggregates. That's who the Buddha calls a brahmin. Again, defined by inner state, not birth.
So if we pull these two stories together, what's the common thread?
Well, clearly, both are about breaking free from powerful forces that keep us stuck. Story 297 calls them ties, these pulls toward human or even divine pleasures.
And story 298 uses delight for that same kind of attraction.
Right, but story 298 adds that really crucial other side, non-delight.
The aversion, the wanting to escape difficulty or discomfort, or the weariness that can come with striving. You have to overcome both.
Exactly. It's not enough just to let go of chasing pleasure. You also have to stop running from hardship or boredom or discontent. It's a two-sided coin.
And in both cases, achieving this balance, this liberation from both attraction and aversion, leads to this state the texts call Brahman.
A state defined purely by spiritual accomplishment. Transcending these internal states, achieving inner peace, that coolness, purity, and, well, conquering the limitations of your own experience.
It's presented as the ultimate spiritual achievement, completely separate from any external identity.
And the texts say these teachings had real impact, right? People heard these verses, understood the points.
And many apparently reached stages of enlightenment themselves just from hearing them. They resonated.
Which brings it back to us, maybe, for you listening.
Yeah.
How do these ancient ideas land today?
Yeah, I mean, these concepts of ties, delight, non-delight, they sound ancient, but the dynamics feel very current, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yep.
We all want some kind of freedom or happiness, but maybe we're constantly caught, pulled by the things we want, our delight.
Or pushed away by the things we don't want, the stuff we find unpleasant or difficult, our non-delight. Still bound, just in different ways.
So the core message we can pull from this deep dive into these two stories seems to be, well, that real freedom, that inner coolness.
It comes from really working on letting go. Not just the obvious desires, the chasing after things.
But also letting go of the resistance, the aversion, the discontent with things that aren't pleasant. It's about finding a kind of equanimity, maybe.
A release from both sides of that push and pull. That's what these sources seem to point towards as true liberation, transcending our usual way of reacting.
And it offers this radical definition of spiritual status, the Brahman, based entirely on that inner work. It kind of bypasses all the external stuff we usually focus on.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. If overcoming these internal ties, navigating both delight and non-delight, is what marks true freedom, according to these texts.
What ties might be subtly holding you back in your own life? What does your version of delight, the things you chase, look like? And, maybe just as importantly, what forms does your non-delight take? The things you resist, the discomforts you fight against.
Where are you getting caught in that push and pull? Something to think about.